Thanks for being here. We got an interesting, I don't want to say surprise. I guess it is sort of a surprise this week. If you receive this email, Reason sent a newsletter, and it was just a very basic, plain looking newsletter. And out of the blue, I see this Reason turns 25. They didn't even make a huge deal about it. Excuse me. And I was like, 25 years old. That makes sense. I started out on Reason 2.5. We're going to go through all the different versions and what came when. And and it obviously was 2.5. This was, I can't remember what year. Was it maybe 2003? And then so it had been out for a little while. So it makes sense that a couple years before they launched Reason. But anyways, they said Reason 1 showed up as a virtual rack on a beige computer screen and all this stuff. And then there's this blog post. I ended up going to the blog post here, and we're going to go through all of this in a minute, but just check something here. And it basically goes through all the different versions, what happened in which versions, in which version. I have a bunch of stuff to talk about, some interesting stuff that happened back then when some of these versions were updated, or even a little bit of controversy. There was some. It got heated back and forth. The users wanted some stuff, and the developers really didn't want to include the stuff in there. We're going to talk about all that on the stream today. I have about an hour and a half, I think, and yeah, so hopefully we can get through the whole thing by then. I'm not sure how long. I want to look at a couple of interesting older videos from Reason as well that'll be interesting to see about specific things here. So if we don't get through all this today, we'll do another stream tomorrow and continue. I think we should be able to get through all of this today. But so Reason is 25 years old. That's why I got the hat. And I'm gonna have to remove it in a minute to be able to hear the stuff here. But so I mentioned it a little bit before. I started Reason 2.5, and it was way different. Like, we're so lucky to have everything that's in Reason right now. But version 2.5 was still interesting. There were some limitations. We'll talk about that. How I actually did like some of the limitations, but yeah. So let's just go right into it. One of the things that I did that might be interesting as well, and for you, if you go to, I thought I had loaded it up here. Okay, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna go to this here. If you go to Reason Studios here and you open this, and then you go to videos and you go to oldest. This is really interesting because they started 18 years ago. So I guess Reason was 7 years old by then. But you've got a good insight onto Reason now is pretty, what do they call it? I can never get the word ubiquitous. I think I had a problem with that word on another stream as well. I grew up as a little French kid, and some of these words just never made it into my brain. But anyways, everybody, people know Reason now, but it used to be very specific people would be talking about it, and when they did, it was the biggest deal. I remember when I think it was Black Eyed Peas had talked about it, and we were like, Black Eyed Peas is using Reason. You almost felt like an outcast if you used Reason. And in a lot of ways, I wanted to get training at one point, and I went to a place that did training on a whole bunch of DAWs, and he was like, no, we don't have anybody that does Reason. I wanted to learn mastering related stuff, so we were like, maybe I could do training on, mastering generally, like a compressor is a compressor, it will port itself to Reason, but he had nobody that dealt with Reason stuff, and it seemed like they dealt with pretty well every other DAW except for this one. So yeah, so it was, I don't know, it was special in a way, and it was tough in a way because not a lot of people are using it. So, but anyways, if you check out some of these videos, we're gonna watch this one in a minute, and then yeah, you can look through. But I was like sorting by oldest, and the interesting thing is like the production quality on these 18-year-old videos was actually really good. Like, you know, it basically stands up today, apart from I'm assuming the resolution is probably much lower, but yeah. So actually, we can watch one of these right now. I'm gonna remove this hat. So happy birthday, Reason. I'm happy to be celebrating this today and basically looking back in time to how things develop, because we sort of forget, like, you move forward so much that, and so quickly sometimes, even though people think, oh, it's slow, whatever, you know, it's moved ahead a lot. Like, we're going to look at which devices were there at the beginning. It was nothing like what we have now. So sometimes you forget about what we did have in the beginning. It just feels like some of these devices have always been there. So yeah, so okay, let's watch this one here, which doesn't want to load. Oh, that's just a long intro.
You want lively acoustic drums on your recordings? You need the kind of variation and control that loops or sample CDs can't offer? If you're serious about your music, you do. After all, a solid professional drum sound is an integral part of any pop or rock.
This was 240p. So if you know about resolutions now, it's like, you know, 1080p is pretty well you're between 1080p and 4K. So
production.
Yeah, this was 240.
Sure, you could take matters into your own hands and do it yourself. But if your playing and recording skills don't quite cut it, and you still want that pro sound, you're gonna need one of these. One of these, a selection of these, a couple of these, a ton of these, one of these, and of course, plenty of this. But what if there is a way around all this? What if there was a hassle-free, affordable option available? Enter Reason Drum Kits 2, a professional drum recording session in a refill. Reason Drum Kits 2 captures the entire recording session for you. The room, the drums, the drummer, the gear, the work and knowledge of experienced professionals. Drum Kits 2 functions exactly like a professional drum studio, except for the fact that you don't have to do any actual recording.
So basically, when you look at this, like, this was fancy. It was the fact that you could get drums as sample. Like, now we're getting sample packs all the time. And it's just normal that we have sample packs that sound like the drums and whatever. And yeah, it's just interesting to look back. And I won't go through the whole video because you can go back. The way I showed you to the oldest one. This is their oldest video. But yeah, it's interesting how, like, things have changed in just 20 years, because it was a big deal to have real sounding drums in there, because a lot of the drum sounds we had were just like the sort of general MIDI sounds, if you've ever heard those. But yeah, so anyways, there's some interesting videos on that YouTube page. So okay, let's start. I'm just gonna go to this here, and okay, so they talk about a little bit about the history and how it came about, but I find this really interesting, the way they use this, because they say you can clearly see where the project was going, because they had Rebirth before, and which was basically a 303 clone, and then they wanted to turn it into more of a DAW type thing. And you can tell, like, I'm assuming, yeah, these are the cables here where they wanted to have it so the cables can go through, which, you know, we still have today, which is, you know, if we go here and we flip it back, like, actually same colored cables and everything. So this is probably the most interesting thing here. So they have it. I love these screenshots they have, and they have Reason 1 in 2000. But when you look at it, it looks pretty well exactly the same as today. Like, this stuff is all the same. This stuff is all the same. It's very, very similar. It's interesting how little the UI has changed. And then you feel sometimes like it's a little bit dated, which is probably realistic because it hasn't changed in 25 years. But there is I don't know. There's a nostalgia to it where when you see Reason, you know it's Reason. But anyways, I found it really interesting how close, like if we go here to like, obviously there are a whole bunch of new options, and some of these are relatively new the way they organized it. But it's very, very similar. The velocity is still the same, all that stuff. So anyways, sort of interesting how they were able to carry that over the years. So, okay, Reason 1. Let's talk about what was there, because if you haven't been using Reason for more than a few years, you have no idea what we had to go through. And this is the major one because, okay, so there was Subtractor, which was the one synth in it. There was ReDrum, or ReDrum. I think the official pronunciation is ReDrum, but I've never been able to get used to it. And it's like Reason, whatever, and then ReDrum. And I understand it's from a movie and stuff. But anyways, ReDrum, drum computer, Subtractor, the NN19, which I'd called it for probably 22 years, and then maybe 20 years, and then a couple years ago, I found out that it was supposed to be NN19, and if you know the Paul Hardcastle song 19, it was 19. So I guess they made the name based on that, and I never realized that until a couple of years ago. It may even have been on a live stream that I discovered it. Like, I remember it just hit me. I was like, what? Like, I never knew. But anyway, so there was Dr. Rex, and you may know it now as Dr. Octarex because you can use 8 different Rex files. You could only use one, so it only had the single one. To be fair, anytime I use it, I tend to just use one most of the time anyways, but I haven't used it that much lately, but anyways. And then there was a Rebirth input machine if you were using Rebirth before. So that's all that was there as devices. So you really had the one synth, you had something for drums, you had your sampler. And there's one thing that it didn't have, and this sort of looks like it here, like it looks like now, but you didn't have any audio input, audio recording at all. Like, you couldn't take a microphone, record like any DAW where you record your stuff and then work with the clip. The only way to get audio into it was to use this NN19 digital sampler, and then you had to record your sample, and then you could use the audio from your sample and like trigger it through a sampler, but you couldn't use audio at all. And that was a huge limitation. And it became, again, a little bit controversial because they really didn't want to add that stuff in there. And they said it should be all, whatever, self-contained and all that stuff. So, so basically, you had your sampler, which I guess in a way you had everything. You had the ReDrum for drums, you had your sampler for whatever audio content you wanted that you could drop in there as samples, and you had one synth. So and the Dr. Rex, I guess you could use regular audio in there, but you weren't able to do it right in Reason. Like, now you can go in Reason and create your Rex file. You weren't able to do that. You needed I can't remember the name of he needed some sort of a chopper to put in there. So so that was a little more complicated to do. And it wasn't like, if you go now, you're able to take audio and stretch it and whatever. You weren't able to do that. If you basically stretched, like if you slowed down the tempo, it would take each sample and then like slow down how it started the sample, but the sample didn't change itself. So it became like you had little spaces in between each sample. So it was almost, I tried to do remixes for years and it never worked. But anyways, that's what you had. And then I guess you had the Matrix, and I remember using that extensively. And that's this device here. Probably under players. Matrix. Oh, I guess they have it under effects. No, utilities, I guess. Okay. So that's this device here. And what I loved doing with this was taking this and there was a way to randomize. There we go, randomize pattern. But sometimes it sounds better than others, and it's not scale aware or anything. So, and I wasn't, I didn't understand music theory at all. So I have a feeling some of the tracks that I use this on would have been all over the place. But what I tended to do actually was this, and it would sound weird. So I just choose a note here, and then I'd make them all that same note. And so it gave a little bit of a pattern. So I would use it more for like the pattern and the groove than for the actual notes a lot of the time, because like I said, I didn't really, well, first of all, I didn't really understand music theory, and it was all over the place. Like if we go here, randomize pattern, like it has stuff in a whole bunch of different octaves. Like you can use this. So it's got, it's got five different octaves of notes. So anyways, it was a really interesting way to use it, but that we were limited to a lot of that. So, and 8 half rack effect modules, and those were a lot of there was a compressor filter and these very simple, I'll go to effects. Yeah, things like this one here. So, which were great for learning about stuff, like, because this compressor has 4 buttons and that's it. But you know, they're the important buttons. You can do almost everything with them. So, yeah. So anyways, very, very limited. Like I said, no audio input. And that was reason 1.0. When I started 2.5, still didn't have audio input. Actually didn't for quite a while after that. Reason 2, which I was just before I got mine, was, let's just look here. So they added Maelstrom, and I remember those were the 2 synths. It was Subtractor and Maelstrom. So they added that in there, and the NNXT. The big deal with these samplers was the Nina 19. I wonder if is it supposed to be Nina XT? I guess. But the Nina 19 sampler, I still can't get used to saying it that way, but that one it was basically more of a one note type thing. And then the advanced sampler, you were able to map your notes. And I have to do a video about that at some point, because I still see people using that, and they're mapping each note individually, and there's a way to just have everything auto map for you. But anyways, you had a little bit more access with, let's just look here. It'll be under instruments. So if we look at this, and then this one here, you still had a lot of effects, but it was mainly that one sample. And then this one here, you had access to a lot more samples. You could map all across your keyboard. So that made a huge difference to have access to that. Especially, like I said earlier, we had no audio input. So if you wanted to record, even I used it to record songs, but you'd have to put like your chorus on one sample, and then you'd chop it up like each sentence, and then you'd trigger the sample as the song went. But the problem was, like, if you had a long sample, let's say you had your whole chorus in one sample, and halfway through the chorus you make a change, you want to go back, you had to go back to the beginning, because it would have to re-trigger the MIDI. Like, it was a hassle. Like, we're so lucky to have the stuff in there. And like I said, they didn't want to add it. Like, people wanted it. It's not like people never thought about it. People were saying, like, please add audio recording. No, we will never add audio recording. Yeah, so 2 was a version right before I started using it, and then Orchestra Refill, which I used for years. I still use it. Like, it's got some really great sounds in there. So that was launched in 2. 2.5, where I discovered Reason, was it was then it was growing, and then you had to go to a store. Like you couldn't just download it online. So I don't know if I still have the boxes. At one point, I think I got rid of a bunch of the boxes, but I kept like some parts of it, like the manuals and stuff. But I have to look at what I have of my old Reason stuff. I probably should have done this before the birthday stream, but I hadn't realized that we were celebrating a birthday right now. So this year, I guess, because they said it was November. So they just said this last week, but yeah, they say it was released in November 2000. So anyways, okay, 2.5 brought the RV7000 Advanced Reverb, my favorite reverb sound out of everything. Besides the ROM, like it's really close. I use the ROM plugin a lot, but this has always been my favorite reverb sound since I discovered it. And back then, that's another thing too. Like it was really tough. Every audio software I used before Reason, as soon as you used reverb especially, it would just slow it down to a crawl. Like reverb was just so intensive. And this was usable. Like it was very usable on whatever computer. So they did a great job with this. But if we go here to, I think they have two of them now, but Film Score. This Film Score IR, I'm not sure why there are two. But anyways, Film Score is my absolute favorite reverb sound. And it always has been. It's weird that they call it IR because they didn't use IRs back then. But anyways, Film Score is amazing sounding. Like you throw it on anything and it just sounds big. Like I know that's the point of reverbs, but that one is particularly interesting. So anyways, they added the RV7000. They added the vocoder, which like these limitations, like we didn't have a lot of devices, but these limitations were useful because it made you really understand your DAW. Like it made you understand each device because you didn't have access to many of them. Like now we have so many plugins, then you start to play around with one of them and then you jump to something else. These limitations like made me really, really understand devices. I would understand almost each button on almost all of these devices, except the vocoder. Like I had such a tough time. And now we have access to YouTube. We have access to a lot of resources for something like this on how to use a vocoder. And this is how I would use it, was because I didn't understand, because you need two signals, like you need the carrier signal and everything. So I would, like if I play something here, it's not playing anything. But if I switch here to equalizer instead of the vocoder, for some reason, it still doesn't play. Do we not have? Oh, okay. We've got we've got too much stuff here. Hold on. Let me just do a new. Okay. We'll go back to the Subtractor. And then we will go and add the vocoder. So as you can tell, it doesn't do anything. But if you went to equalizer, it would do stuff. So I would use it as a really interesting equalizer. So almost a filter. You get some interesting sounds out of it, and then especially if you go to these higher ones, you could really make your sound do interesting stuff. But that's not what a vocoder is. Like I was just using, and it took me years to understand, oh, okay, you need the other signal. And it was so much work to have to bring in two signals and play. So I rarely use this vocoder. Like it's probably the first device that was in there that I never used. So, or very rarely. And so the Scream came in. I use that a lot, especially the tape. Like there are a few of the effects on there I have to start using that again because there's some really interesting stuff on Scream. And then the Unison, which I used a lot, but and then Spider, yeah, so you're able to merge stuff and combine stuff. So anyways, that stuff wasn't there before Reason 2.5. I guess as they had more devices, you know, it was good to have stuff where you're able to merge signals and stuff. So, and okay, so that was 2.5. And then Reason 3 was the one where the Combinator came in. And people were making a huge deal out of it. And I was like, I didn't really get it at the beginning. And then I was like, I used it mostly to be able to load a preset and then you don't have to load 6 different devices. Like, you were able to load a preset and then go play around with it. But anyways, the combinator was finally added there. Again, as more devices ended up in Reason, it was worth having stuff that you can use to combine them. And that was, I think that was the main thing in Reason 3. And oh no, that's what it was, the M-Class mastering suite. That's right, that came out in Reason 3. Before then, you couldn't master anything in Reason, and that was a big limitation because I was already doing music for television shows. I was trying at the time, and then I ended up having to buy T-Rax. It's funny, I did a video about that the other day, but T-Rax 24, I think it was, and yeah, and basically I had to take my track here, throw it into T-Rax, and then master it there, because there was no way, like, the signal coming out of Reason wasn't, yeah, it was very, very unmastered. Like, he really needed to do stuff afterwards. So it was nice when that came in, because it saved me from using the other one. Though I'm happy I had the other one, because I was able to get a really good sound. There's one, that was my first TV show that my music ended up on, was a reality show called Russian Dolls. And that track, the way it was mastered in T-Rax, I don't know if it would have worked if I didn't have, those tools at that time. So, but anyways, yeah, so that was nice where they added all of the mastering stuff right into Reason. But that took me a while to get used to, because I didn't really understand what was going on. So that my signal was so hot that it was just bringing everything down. Like, it took me a while to get used to it. But anyways, that was nice to be able to do your stuff right in Reason and get your track out of Reason sounding ready to go for whatever you wanted to use it for. So that made a huge difference. And then, yeah, so that's basically, they added a little bit to the factory sound bank. Reason 4. Okay, this was the one where they added the arpeggiator. So they added Thor, and I remember that being a big deal, because again, we only had 2 synths in there. So we had Subtractor and Maelstrom, and Thor was a much bigger, more involved synth. So I remember that being a huge deal. And then the arpeggiator, and if you go to the Reason YouTube channel I mentioned earlier, there's a video about it. And I find it interesting, again, with this video here, where, like, this is all normal to us. Like, we know what an arpeggiator is now, but back then, like, a lot of people didn't understand what the arpeggiator was in the first place, and especially how it was in a DAW, right? So you had it maybe on your synth, but so we won't go through the whole thing, but we'll just skip ahead here.
Essentially, what an arpeggiator does is it
I remember
takes
this
the
guy
notes that you input on the keyboard and cycles through them in a preset pattern.
So it's interesting, because it actually talks about the basics of an arpeggiator. If you don't know arpeggiators that well, or you don't know them at all, it might be a great video to learn the basics of arpeggiation in the first place, and then how it works in the Reason rack. So okay, so the arpeggiator came out, and then the regroove mixer, and then you can see it here. I don't know, is it still set up that way? Like, I haven't used it in a long time. Where is it? You guys know where it is down here. Oh, groove, there we go. Yeah, so it looks very similar from this to this, but they made it look a lot more fancy. I don't remember seeing it like this. I guess it's been a while since I've loaded it. But anyways, the groove lets you put a groove on your tracks, but without applying it to, it's non-destructive. So it doesn't apply to your MIDI track itself. So you're able to make changes to it without, down the road, you can decide you'll change the groove on the whole track, and you don't have to go redo everything. So anyways, they added that in here, and I think that was the last part in there. Okay, this is where it got complicated, because like I was saying, Reason, there were 3 things that Reason didn't want to add, and they really didn't want to add them. They didn't want to add audio recording. They didn't want to add MIDI out, and that was a big huge deal for a lot of people, because a lot of people who were using external gear, and Reason sort of lends itself well to external gear, they were like, no, we will never have MIDI out. We will never have audio recording. We will never have VSTs, like external VSTs. That last one, the VSTs, I don't know. There was something about Reason, because it was this closed system and it was coded really well. It never, ever crashed. Like, I think probably in about 10 years maybe of using it, like the first 10 years, I had it maybe crash once or twice, and I was using it constantly. Like, I was using it for everything. I started, like, I use Ableton Live a lot now, but that's in the past few years. But my first years were just Reason. I was using it like for everything, and it would never, ever, ever crash because everything was this closed system. I mean, it was this closed system and it was really well done. So yeah. But at some point they said, they don't say it here. I'm convinced it was stubbornness. They were like, we will never add audio, like audio recording, audio in type of thing in Reason. So we'll do it in a separate tool. So that's what they did in 2009. They had record. So basically this, you can tell this here is that's Reason now, but that's the audio section of Reason in the sequencer now. But anyway, so they did that. So what you had to do is use both of them. If you ever used Rewire or heard of Rewire, people are like, oh, I miss Rewire. I hated it. Like, I couldn't stand it at all, because Rewire, what it was you could use two DAWs together, and you'd be able to use one to control the other, but you had to like open one and then open the other one. And then if one of them crashed, you had to reopen both of them. And it was just, yeah, I wasn't a fan of Rewire. I wasn't a fan of using record as two separate ones. I was like, just put it in there. Like, anyways, they folded and they released record in 2009. So it took them 9 years to be able to have audio, like where you were actually able to take your microphone, record an audio clip, and deal with your audio clip. Because like I said earlier, before that, you had to do everything through a sampler. So you could record audio, but just trigger it through a sampler, so as MIDI. So yeah, so 2009, they did that. Then they did let's just go back here to... This here was the console. So you didn't have that SSL type console that they have now. So this is what we had, and you couldn't add anything. As far as I remember, like it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 tracks. Is that? Anyways, it was this, and that was your mixer. And then you would use these sub mixers. Well, actually, we still have them. You'd use this line mixer a lot. So you could sort of combine stuff and then bring it into one of these tracks. But anyways, that's the mixer we had access to. And honestly, I sort of miss using this, even though it must still be in there. But I miss using this because it was simple. Like, you had your EQ up here, and you had your solo. It was a basic mixer, but it had everything you needed. But anyways, what they did when they did record, that's where they brought in this fancier mixer closer to what we have now. Actually, very close to what we have now. So they mentioned that here. So they modeled it after the SSL 9000K. And yeah, so you're noticing this is a little bit more similar. But this wasn't Reason. This was record. This was just the audio. So you had one for just your audio, one for just your MIDI and stuff. It was annoying. But anyways, that's why they brought it in. That's why they started to fold with their 3 we will never do's. But yeah, so, and then they added line 6 guitar and bass amps, which I don't think I've ever even used after all these years. But anyways, they're still in there. And then, and then they added Neptune. I hadn't realized it was that long ago they did that, and I remember Neptune is basically the equivalent of, or similar to Auto-Tune, and I remember using that a lot. So yeah, so you had your 2 different DAWs at this point. So now we're going back to Reason, and 2010, was that the same year? Yeah, okay. So the next year they did Reason 5, and they added a few other things. They added blocks. Do you guys use blocks? I understand the concept of them, but I haven't like used them enough to basically get the benefits of them. But anyways, that's when they added that. And the Kong drum designer. And I remember that being a big deal, mostly because, let's just load it here. I like being able to take one of these, and then the fact that you could just change whatever drum module you wanted. Like you could have a sample, or you could have a physical bass drum and make all your changes. And I have to play around with this a lot more because I'm realizing there's a lot more options, even just on the bass drum, than I remember there being. So I don't know if these were all there at the beginning, but I don't remember that many options. But anyways, so they added Kong, and Dr. Rex was updated. Okay, so that's when they updated Dr. Rex to turn it into Dr. Octorex. Like I said earlier, if I use it, I tend to use just one Rex loop. But yeah, it lets you use 8 loops. So that was a big deal if you're using that a lot. And live sampling, the ReDrum, could all record samples on the fly, which I don't think I've ever even used that way. But anyways, that's interesting. So they added all of that, and then could run into the record program. Okay, so like with Reason, yeah, okay, so that's when you had the two together. Reason 6 is where they folded, and I think they were, I don't know, like, they did something that they've never done since, and I hope they do at some point, because I feel like it would be a smart thing to do right now. But anyways, what they did in Reason 6 is they decided to merge them into one. So how long did it take? 2011, and then, so it only took 2 years for them to realize, okay, like these have to be the same program. But the interesting thing they did with this is if you had the two, they did this upgrade deal that was pay what you want, which I find was a fantastic idea. And if you look at the comments on Reason videos now, like people are very, very negative. Let's go back in time to this. And this is a video where they talk about how they're doing it.
Ever since we announced Reason 6, we've been hearing from excited Reason users all over the world. If you've got Reason 5, Reason 4, or earlier, this upgrade is going to be mammoth for you. I mean, you're getting unlimited audio tracks, a big kick-ass mixer, guitar amp simulators, a pitch corrector voice synth, breathtaking time stretch, and a bunch of other goodies from Record, not to mention all the new stuff in Reason 6. But what about you guys who already have Record? Yeah, I'm talking to you, the Record Reason Duo users. I mean, you already have the audio tracks, amps, the...
Oh, that little USB stick that they just showed, that was annoying because it had to be plugged in all the time. People complain now that it goes, you have to be online for it to go and call home basically to figure out if you have an authorization. But you had to have that plugged into your computer. And a lot of the time your computer, you were plugging your mouse and your keyboard into the USB. So you didn't have a whole bunch of extra USB slots in your computer. So I hated that little thing. I still have it, but I did not like it.
And so on. So you may be saying to yourself, well, what exactly is this upgrade worth to me? Well, you know what? On September 30th, we're going to be asking you that same question. How much is Reason 6 worth to you? And guess what? Whatever answer you give us, whether it's $1 or $1,000, that's how much you'll pay. We trust you to place a value on Pulverizer, the Echo, Alligator, 64-bit processing, audio transpose, and our expanded factory sound bank. On the day of the release, Record Reason Duo users will be invited to a special pay-what-you-want site. It's a limited-time offer that ends after October, so get on this while you can, and tell your friends so nobody misses out.
I found this interesting too when I saw this the other day, how social media has changed. Like Facebook, Twitter is still X or what they call it now, but Google Plus was a big thing. Tumblr, which hardly anybody uses. SoundCloud is still there.
If you're a Record Reason Duo user who can't wait to get your hands on Reason 6, you can start by asking yourself one simple question. What's Reason 6 worth to me? For more information, head over to our website or join the discussion that's about to explode in our forums.
And I do miss, Reason had these forums, and there was a community there that I've never seen anywhere else. synth. Like it was just a really close community. Like I love the forums on there. And I know there's no way anybody's like that person is watching this, but somebody had posted a song called, it was from their church service, and it was, I Just Want to Worship You. And I love that track. I still listen to it today. They had put it in the regular forum, and then they got sort of, the post got banned from that forum because there was an actual song forum or whatever. Anyways, I wish I could find the person that made that track, because it's a very interesting, it's a great track, and it still works today after all these years. So anyways, the interesting thing is, if you look at this and the comments, just think of the comments that you usually see on Reason. You'll have some positive, but a lot of people complaining about stuff. Read these comments here. You guys are officially the best company in the history of the earth. There are no words for this. I want to donate just getting the option to pick your price. Then there's one here. I think I highlighted it. Is it still there? No. Somebody's like, I want to pinch myself. It's oh man, there we go. This one here. I have to keep watching this video and pinching myself to see if I'm dreaming. I don't know why. It just made me laugh. Anyways, yeah. So there's some interesting comments on here. People, you can tell that there was love for Reason that I feel is missing now, and I feel like the whole pay as you want thing, like it worked really well for Serum. Like even though Serum was technically supposed to be free, and I remember Steve Duda saying it made people donated a lot more than he expected them to donate. Anyways, people were loving Reason for this. I was loving Reason because they actually merged them together. So that was a big thing for me, because I hated having the audio separate, and I hated having to just record little clips as MIDI like we had to do before that. So anyways, Reason 6 was the major one, was a major one because they merged those together, and it was very inexpensive if you wanted it to be very inexpensive. So yeah. And but they added a bunch of stuff in this one too. Devices that I still use quite a bit. The pulverizer, the Echo. The Echo is good, but the Alligator is, I just love that device. And I haven't found like anything. Like there's no other plugin that does the equivalent of this. If you haven't used Alligator, you have to try to use it in stuff, because hold on here. Can we, I won't do this too long, but see if we can, oops, it's not where I want it, but let's just do a few of these. And this is just, I think I just have the initial patch on Subtractor. Like this is doing nothing. Like it can do, it's just taking very, very simple Subtractor like there's nothing there. It's just the initial patch. So anyways, it can do some really interesting stuff. So I love that Alligator device. It's probably still one of my favorites in Reason. So, and like that was from 2011. So it's been out for 14 years. It's still one of my favorite ones in there. So, and then okay, so there was, so they brought Neptune into Reason because it had been in Record, because like I said earlier, all of your audio was in Record before. So it was nice to have all of that together. And then the ID8 instrument, which I don't use, but it's a good basic thing to get sounds out of stuff. And like I said, the Line 6 amps that I rarely use, but if you're a guitarist, that was very useful to have right in Reason. So, and then that's where they started with 62-bit and not just the 32-bit. So anyways, okay, so 6.5, I've got notes here for some of these versions, but 6.5, and you notice something, there's still no MIDI out. And because those were the three things they were saying they would never have: MIDI out, VSTs, and the audio input, and audio they dealt with. So they folded on that one, but the other two, they're like, no, we will never have those other two. And okay, so Reason 6.5, they make it as a different one. And okay, so they introduced rack extensions, and it wasn't a huge thing, but yeah. So they added rack extensions, basically, was the main one. Okay, Reason 7 came with the external MIDI instrument device, which allowed control of external MIDI instruments from Reason. And I don't think they actually say the words here. It's almost like they were stubborn. They didn't want to admit they had MIDI out. And so they folded on point number 2. MIDI out was added in here with the external MIDI instrument device. So, yeah, so that was a big deal for people who were using external gear. And let's see here. So yeah, basically they started saying Reason has a rack for that. So that was the main thing on Reason 7, exciting for a lot of people. And okay, so we'll go through the check marks here. So the audio input they would never have, they added into it. And MIDI out, they added into it. And then VSTs, if you use Reason now, you know that there may be something happening in the future of them, something after 2014 of them folding on that one. But anyways, they were like, we'll never have MIDI, we'll never have VSTs. And at this point, there were still no VSTs. And people were requesting it, but they didn't want to add it. Okay. Sorry, let me just switch something here. Okay, so Reason 8, the updated sequencer graphics, workflow improvements, the browser. So that's where I think a lot of people have, they get all, what is it, PTSD almost from the browser, like the word browser, because that was a bit of a mess in the last few years. But anyways, this is where they added the browser, this here, which is very similar to what we have now and what we have back now, because they moved it to that other one and then they brought it back. But anyways, very similar. I guess it takes up less space now the way they have it here, where you've got the stuff at the top and next to it. But anyways, it's very similar to what we have now. Again, very similar. Like this, it looks exactly Reason 2014. In 2014 looked the same as it does now. So, okay. So what did they add in number 8 was the browser, and then the soft tube amps that would later replace the older Line 6 amps in Reason 9. Okay. And then they made the RV7000 reverb Mark II, which added convolution. You could drop some impulse responses in there. And so that wasn't a huge update, but that was Reason 8. Reason 9, this is where they started to play a little bit more, to bring players into a little bit. Yeah, they say introduce the player concept. So, this was a fun one because I don't know, these players. I like more randomized stuff. I like those happy accidents, they call them. So this the dual arpeggiator is great for that. Like you take a few sounds, you can make something with it, even though you just have something very basic. Note echo I've rarely used. You guys use that one? And scales and chords that I use constantly. It just makes it easier, especially when you're using the players, just to sort of bring them in a little bit, where like I mentioned earlier, like the Matrix would just throw stuff all over the place, and then this lets you, like, you could put this after Matrix and have it, which I've never thought of doing. It might not be a bad idea to do the randomize on Matrix, like I showed earlier, and then bring it in to like pass it through scales and chords to at least have the stuff in scale. It may still sound a little bit odd because the Matrix would throw stuff like on all 5 octaves, but I think there was a way, now that I think about it, I think there's a way in Matrix to limit that to certain octaves, but maybe not. I thought there was a way to limit the randomization, but anyways, it doesn't matter. You could run it through scales and chords and do some interesting stuff. So that's what they brought into 9 right before the big 9.5 update, and that's probably the only time that they did a 0.5 that was like as major as the actual the regular updates, like the full number updates. So what is the point updates, or 9.5 is a point update, whatever. But pitch edit mode in the sequencer, and that is an interesting one that I would guess that probably half the people who use Reason still don't know that this is in there. And it lets you do sort of like Melodyne, like you take your vocal sample and you can pitch individual notes like after. It's not like the Neptune in here, or like the Auto-Tune Live or whatever, where it's just correcting it as you go. You can actually go and fix up the pitch afterwards. A lot of people don't know that. I'm going to do a video specifically about that at one point, but that's an amazing thing. And it's interesting how quickly they went from having no audio input, we will never have audio input and we never use, whatever, to actually being able to do stuff with the audio more than most DAWs. Like a lot of DAWs don't have this, where you're able to go and the equivalent of Melodyne built right in. So anyways, that was a very interesting thing that's sort of people didn't really think about, but yeah, that was added there. Bounce in place. And again, like these big audio related features after not wanting to do audio for years. So I'm glad they folded on that. I'm glad they ended up adding these things and putting some emphasis on this. And then around 1,000 new patches, the Pulsar LFO device was added. 9.5 was a big one, and which is really interesting because it occurred to me last night that Reason 9.5 was a huge update as a 0.5. Like it could have been Reason 10. And Ableton Live did the same thing. 9.5 was a huge update in Ableton Live where they added a whole bunch of stuff, which could have been Ableton Live 10. So I don't know what it is about 9.5. Maybe it's they want to do a big deal when they get to 10. I don't know. There's something interesting about both of these. But anyways, 2017, they did Reason 9.5, and it included, okay, so this is where they folded on point number 3. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to keep going over this, but audio in, they didn't want to do. MIDI out, they didn't want to do. And VST, and all three, they said they would never do, and they did. They did it. So this is where it came full circle. They added VST plugins into it. We were sort of worried, though, because like I said earlier, like when it didn't have VST, Reason was extremely stable, like it would never crash. And yeah, we worried that it would start crashing if, again, you don't need to use the VSTs, like you could use it the old way, but anyways, it didn't. Like it's actually, Reason is a very, very, very stable DAW compared to a lot of them. And I don't know what they do with their code, but yeah. It's so anyways, they added VSTs, which was a big deal for so many people. And because that's something too, like you were making music, you basically, it got to a point where Reason couldn't be your main DAW anymore because it didn't have VSTs. So it was getting like that, those lines were just separating more and more because you had like your regular stuff with VSTs. So you couldn't just use this. If you wanted to use VSTs, you had to use something else. So you were using two devices. I'm assuming it still had Rewire at this point, but even that, like I said earlier, it was a mess. I did not like Rewire, but anyways, they were getting further and further away where it was becoming almost just a closed little box, but you couldn't use it into your other tracks. Like it was, so they needed to do it. They did it. And I'm happy they folded on point number 3. And yeah, so anyways, you could use all of the VST2 plugins, which was the standard back then. So, and you could use them in your Combinator devices, which I don't do that much. Like I feel like I should be doing that a little bit more, where I'm combining VST2 devices with, that's weird. A big bang on my door. Probably one of those Amazon deliveries where they just throw stuff. Anyways, Reason 9.5. Yeah, so delay compensation they added. So a bunch of little things here. So Reason 10 was where they added some new synths. And Europa, and hold on, I had some notes here. Yeah, oh yeah, that's something I wanted to look at. When we do the VSTs in here, is there a way to make them open? Like if I load up Serum 2, I find this awkward where you always have to hit play and open it. Is there a way to make, if you guys are watching and you know if there's a way to have these open automatically, there might be something in the settings, but anyways, I always find that awkward a little bit. Like they brought the VSTs in there, but you just have it as a rack unit. You don't have access to it right away. But anyways, okay. Reason 10 was where they added Europa. And I'm going to show you something here that I have a feeling that like 90% of you don't know about this. And if you're ever sitting there bored on your laptop or on a Chromebook, something that doesn't even have, where you don't have Reason installed, is something very basic, you can go to this page here. What is it? reasonstudios.com/Europa-player. And there's a web version of this. Like this is just a web page here. And you can play these sounds. I've noticed, depending on your computer, like on my Chromebook, sometimes I feel like it works really hard sometimes, like to keep up. But you can go and you can adjust all of these. So it's a good way to not have to load up Reason, not have to, just be able to do something really, really quickly. You're able to deal with, there's the auto scale, the chords. That's what's really nice too, because if we take one of these notes, oh, that's right, this is going into Reason, but just the regular, but yeah, so this is one note here. It's a quick way to have a bunch of notes playing at once and see what these sound like with chords. I feel like there's a way to save. Yeah, so you can actually save your presets here and then continue them on your, bring them into Reason and work on them there. So this is a really interesting thing to have. And a lot of people don't know it's there. I always think it's going to disappear every time I load it. I think it's still going to be there, and it is. So that's a really nice thing to have. But okay, let's just go back here. So they launched Europa. They added the grain sample manipulator, so for granular synthesis and stuff. And Clang Pangea, is that how you pronounce it? Humana, which I love. I still love this. Even though it's basic, it does maybe, I find there may be 3 or 4 usable voices in there, but they're very usable. It's great for choir, like background choir sounds and stuff, and the radical piano. And okay, so they added a bunch to the sound library. Reason 11, we're getting close now to what you know now if you're using Reason every day. So that's where they added quartet chorus ensemble, the super modulation effect, and Reason rack plugin. So that was the main one on that is what changed everything for me. And some people are like, I'm still on Reason 10, like should I upgrade or whatever? And for me, this was the biggest deal, was being able to take Reason as a plugin into Ableton Live that I'm using more and have access to everything. Like the thing is, there are obviously some very specific limitations, but overall you can do everything. And that's what I love about it. They didn't say, yeah, we're bringing it in, but you can't use the players in there. You can just use the synths. You can't use this. You can't use that. You can use almost everything. You can hit the tab and see the back. I think you used to have to do flip racks, but I think I've been using tab lately. But anyways, you can see the back and just wire it the way you want. You can use all of the Reason stuff within there, within any DAW that you have, which is a really smart move, because they were able to, like, this ensures their future, that if people stop using the DAW and if they don't have the resources to keep building the DAW, because people just want more and more, people want every DAW to do everything, and they're able to still have, like, in French it's a raison d'être, like basically a reason to be, because it's usable in other stuff. And a lot of people are just working in other DAWs for a number of reasons. And then it's just nice to have access to that, because you have so many sounds. Like if you sit there and really play around with Reason, like you'll always discover something that you had forgotten was in there or you hadn't realized. Like there's, I don't know, it amazes me how many sounds are in there. So it's nice to be able to use that. I work a lot faster in Ableton Live now. Like I said, I work exclusively with Reason for years, a little bit with Pro Tools a couple of times, but basically Reason was my DAW. And yeah, and then I got really, really fast at working in Ableton, so it's always tough to go back into a different DAW, no matter what it is. So yeah, this was a huge thing for me. That was, that made it like a whole new. It's basically like a whole new software program. So, yeah. So, and then Reason 12, which was relatively recent. What did they had? It's tough remembering like what they added where, right? Like, and they added stuff to the combinator, like they made it more fancy, and yeah, that's right. They added Reason Plus, those subscriptions, and I find it interesting here because anytime you talk about subscriptions, people don't like it, and they do talk about it. And it's almost like a little bit of a sales spiel, the type of thing. But then they say, if you didn't want to, you could still purchase a license like before, though. This works the same way today. Like, don't worry. But yeah, so that's where they added a Reason Plus, which works for some people. I'm not a fan of stuff like that, but it does work for some people. And Reason 13, which is the most recent one now, basically added up. And this is where they mentioned the brand new browser. This is another thing they folded on, but they weren't as, like the stuff at the beginning I was mentioning where they really didn't want MIDI out and all that stuff. They never said they didn't want the browser like as on the side. It's basically they made us want the pop-up. And I understand the reasoning behind that pop-up browser. Like, it is convenient for some stuff, but I never got used to it. I actually was hardly using Reason at all when they did that, when they made it the pop-up instead of on the side. So I was really happy when they brought it back to the side on Reason 13. So anyways, so we've got that back on the side where it should be. And then 5 new devices. Which ones were the devices? I remember the Ripley space delay, which I really like. There's stuff about that Ripley space delay. Every time there's like somebody does a new delay, I'm like, oh, not another delay. Like, everybody's doing delays, but this one actually has some interesting stuff. A lot of it because it replaces a bunch of different ones because you can do the bit crushing and type of thing to it. And there are a few, what was it? Hold on here. Ripley effects. The ducking is what, like, for me, a delay has to have that on it to be really useful. So it's got that in there. Like, there's a lot. If you haven't played around with this yet, try it. Just start with the presets and go through them. And like, it's amazing how many different sounds you can get just from one thing. And is this even on? No. Okay. Anyways, it's on the different track, but anyway, you can do so much with it. And okay, so I brought the note tool, random tool. We talked about a lot of that in the last year or so, so won't go through all of these devices, but that's what brings it to what we have today. So yeah, 25 years of Reason, which like I said, from the very, very first one that is still looks very similar. Like, it's very recognizable what we have now to what it was. And I mean, it works. It takes me a while sometimes to get it to do stuff, but I think it's because I use it a little bit less than another DAW. But yeah, there's a lot. There's so much in Reason that it's worth trying to use it a little bit more. Like, we tend to forget about it sometimes. Like I said, with where you can use it as a rack plugin, or some people use it consistently. Some people use just this, and a lot of great tracks have been made with just Reason. And that's the interesting thing with it, especially now that you have VST. Like, in the later years, VST and audio recording, you can do a lot more with Reason. But yeah, it's nice to be able to use it both ways. You can have VSTs brought into there, or use that as a VST in something else. So still curious here. Let's just drop it on here. Oh, I have to drop it. I'll have to drop it below. So yeah, if we go through some of these presets, again, this is just the initial patch. Like, it's not doing anything, but like, you have so many different so many different sounds. Like each of these is different, and it's even more if you have a vocal or something, you notice even more of the differences, because these so far are sounding just very, very delay-ish. Like, this is just the initial patch. So anyways, I love that Ripley space delay. There's a lot that it can do. So anyways, let's go back to this one here. I want to thank you guys for being here. Like, I just wanted to reminisce a little bit about how far we've come, because if you didn't use it in the early years, you have no idea how like tough it was just to do a very simple thing. Like, realistically, you had to record your audio somewhere else in the first place. Like, if you wanted to just have you going, hey, you'd take that, you would have to go into even Windows Sound Recorder or whatever, then record it there, then bring it in, put it somewhere, and then record it, bring it in as a sample. And it was just like so long just to get one little thing done. Yeah, we don't realize how lucky we are with everything. And I'm going to start playing around a little bit more with Reason, like on its own, like playing around in Reason to get used to some of these new devices and try. Like, I miss the time where I would sit there and take each single button and play around with like whatever device. So I would know everything that this one device does. Like, there's just so many now, so many even in Reason, but also just with all of the plugins. I've slowed down my plugin purchasing. Sorry about that, the plosives. But I've slowed down my plugin purchasing in the last few years. Like, I used to buy anything that was like on sale, that was whatever. Now I'm trying to limit it to the ones that I really use a lot. So I want to try to get to know each of my plugins a lot better instead of keep acquiring new ones. But yeah, so. Okay, so that's happy birthday Reason 25, hopefully another 25, and I look forward to seeing what they come up with from here, because there really are some devices in Reason that are not available anywhere else. Like, one of the ones that always impresses me is this one here. There we go. Just this. It's not what it does, but it's just the visuals on this, where if you go to VHS, you've got VHS looking thing, like whatever. I don't know. There's something about some of the Reason plugins or devices. I always call them plugins, but the Reason devices that they do stuff that I haven't seen anywhere else. And yeah, I find there's some creativity there that doesn't exist anywhere else, even though there are some other stuff that I love. Each company has some stuff that I love, but there's some creativity there that I haven't seen. So anyways, thank you very much for being here. I always love doing these things with you guys and going through, these interesting look backs or whatever is new. Oh, there's a new. I just realized I have a new update. So I don't know if there's anything new in the latest Reason, but yeah, we'll update that and see if there's. I don't think there's any new devices. It's probably just all bug fixes and stuff. But anyways, okay. Thanks for being here. Well, I'll see you guys next time. If I don't see you guys before the Christmas season, have a good holiday. Hope have a great Christmas, great happy New Year, happy vacation. I hope you guys take a little bit of time off, and yeah, we'll see you guys. I'll try to do stuff over the holiday season. I've got a whole bunch of stuff planned for January. So yeah, we'll finally trying to get through a bunch of this list, but I have this big long list of videos I want to do, and then stuff like this comes up. So I'm like, I wanted to move on this other one, but this was a more important one because I wanted to do this. As soon as I heard about it, we got to celebrate. 25 years is a big milestone, and it's they've put a lot of work on this throughout the years. So anyways, thanks for being here. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night, great day, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.